Mainstream media might not want us to look at this, but here on the U.S. Report, we are going to look at Devon Archer and how the Vice President, Joe Biden, when he was Vice President, told Hunter's former business associates that he was happy the two were partners in a postscript to the note thanking Archer for attending lunch with visiting Chinese President Hu Jintao. Here he was in an interview the other day talking about that letter.
It was kind of the beginning of our partnership, and he was thanking me and thanking Hunter, I think, at the end of the day for bringing this idea of this government regulatory strategic advisory business into the private equity world. And I think he was excited about the prospects for Hunter, and he was just thanking me. I think it was a nice gesture.
So, Tommy, this whole idea that Joe Biden, when he was vice president, didn't know what this business was all about, despite saying he never discussed business with his son, well, that all falls apart now, doesn't it?
It certainly does. And again, as much as we talk about Hunter Biden and everybody says, well, he's got a lot of issues. Of course, he's got an addiction issue. He doesn't have the clearest judgment. This actually doesn't fall on Hunter Biden. This falls on Joe Biden, who was then the vice president, now the current president. He should know better. Even if he was just talking about the weather and saying hello, which I think is a load of BS, by the way, it is up to him to erase all doubts that there is even a conflict here. But he didn't do that, and why? Because as it seems, unless our eyes are lying to us, it would seem that he is a part of this, whether he's getting a percentage or whether he just wants to see his son flourish with his last name and his help on the phone to be that brand. All of it not only doesn't look good, it's compromising American national security. And because we are a superpower and because we are, I believe, the greatest nation on the face of the earth, it compromises the world to some sense that you have a vice president that was essentially up for sale, whether that meant a speakerphone conversation about the weather or not. It was the perception that he could be bought. And that's the real problem here.
And Tommy, we have seen, of course, that famous tape of Joe Biden bragging about getting that prosecutor in Ukraine fired. And now we have a connection to Burisma, who was employing Hunter at the time. But the Democrats, they're all trying to act like this is no big deal. Here's Democrat Dan Goldman, who has been walking point for the Democrats on how there's nothing to see here.
You're saying that the speakerphone conversations, they don't seem concerning to you because there was no specifics about business, and it just seemed like
it was clear that it was part of the daily conversations that Hunter Biden had with his father.
I'm reminded, back in the Iraq invasion when that guy would come out and say, no, everything's fine here. What did you make, Tommy, of these sorts of denials we're seeing all over the place from the likes of Dan Goldman?
Well, they have to do that. They have to run cover for the Biden family, of course. And the reason they have to do that is not just because they're loyal to a Democrat, not just because they're loyal to Joe Biden. More so, it's because they need to have him, at least right now, at the top of their ticket. Because if they didn't have him, they would be stuck with Vice President Kamala Harris. They have pigeonholed themselves into that corner. So I believe that's why they also have this motivation that they have to prop him up like a weekend at Bernie's, and they have to run cover for him. But I don't know about you. I'm very close to my dad. I have never been on speakerphone with a business associate, a business colleague, or anything related to my professional life and had my dad present on the speakerphone. For them to think that we are that stupid that he was just on the phone because that's a normal thing to do in daily conversations as the vice president of the United States, my goodness. Are we do they really think we are that gullible and naive? I hope not.
Well, my dad's also a journalist. I've never had him, get on the phone when I'm doing an interview and just say, hey, Dad, you want to listen to this here? That'd be really great. But, even the media, though, seems to be having a bit of trouble with this. Listen to this from CBS, which you would expect to be running the straight Democrat line. It feels like a bit of the dam is starting to break. Listen to this.
Democrat Congressman Dan Goldman said that Archer testified that it was the illusion of access to Joe Biden that Hunter Biden was offering to these clients. But in fact, when you look at the transcript, what you see is that phrase illusion of access is in Dan Goldman's question. It's actually not what Devon Archer testified.
So now that everybody is pretty much clear that this was about selling access, do you reckon that there is any chance that this actually gets legs in terms of turning the tide against the Bidens in the White House?
So I'll tell you this. I think it's going to depend on the Republican primary, and I'll tell you why. I think that they believe that if Donald Trump is our nominee, they can beat Donald Trump with Joe Biden or maybe even Kamala Harris. So I think that they will toe the line as long as they need to if they do believe that they can beat Donald Trump. I think when things will change is that the Republican primary goes a different direction. They've got somebody like a Ron DeSantis, who I believe they are more fearful of competing against. I think then you're going to see the dam really break here, and I think you're going to see them throw Biden completely under the bus. And I have long said I believe that Gavin Newsom is going to end up being the Democrat nominee. It's just a matter of when and how they're going to finagle this, how they're going to get Kamala out of the way. But I think it's going to be very interesting. I think all eyes are on the Republican primary for them to make their next move.